This is the parking lot for the Island here in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. As you can see, a very popular place. Just know if you come to a place like Pigeon Forge, especially in the summertime, expect crowds and traffic. Walking into the area known as the Island, making our way to our destination. Right along the Little Pigeon River. Jimmy Buffett's business empire is dotted all over the island. You got Margaritaville over here, and then Margaritaville Island Hotel. There's a little hint as to where we're heading. Yeah, massive shopping area, including Paula Deen's restaurant. But none of these places are really within the ethos of what I cover on this channel. Let's head over and talk about some subject matter that I do cover. And that would be the Alcatraz East Crime Museum. And look, we have to wait in line. I've been waiting in this line for about 15 minutes now. It's the entrance to the museum. And the line divider is handcuffs. Also waiting in line, they have the themed jail cells up here. I've actually visited the real Alcatraz in San Francisco before, and they've done quite well with the theming, at least in the ticket line. Well, it took about an hour, but we're gonna finally get inside, so come and join me and let's get started. Picture the real Alcatraz as you head up the stairs here. This museum's got over 100 artifacts related to the history of crime here in the US. Looking forward to seeing what this place has to offer. Some 15th century handcuffs and hand irons here. Here they got an exhibit on pirates, none of them resembling Jack Sparrow. This is a brass barrel flintlock. Definitely something from back in the old school days. This here's a cannon pirates would use on their ship. There's some flintlock pistols and knives, saying this is from the golden age of piracy, if there ever was such a thing. So this here is an Indian war club used in hand-to-hand combat, right next to another rifle from that same era, late 1800s, a half-stock percussion plains rifle. Here's a notebook that belonged to a gang member from Jesse James's crew. He said James killed the man because he couldn't keep his mouth shut. Sounds a lot like something Tony Soprano would do. This is a walking stick used by Frank James, brother of Jesse James. And looks like down here is an old comic book featuring stories of the outlaw himself. And this is a shoulder holster of one Jesse James. Belonged to him until his death in 1882. Here's a couple of Smith & Wesson revolvers used by the Jesse James gang. There's the story of John Dillinger, bank robber and public enemy #1, and his death location on the north side of Chicago. Some more Dillinger artifacts. This is the wood-carved gun that he used to escape the Lake County Jail in Crown Point, Indiana. There's the death mask of one John Dillinger. There's his mugshot photo, and there's his death photo. The Thompson submachine gun, or the Tommy gun as it's known to be called, made famous in several 1920s era gangster movies and during the Prohibition era. So that is some artifacts from the Bonnie and Clyde death car. Now the actual death car, I think it's out in California, but there's a lot of hoax death cars that were developed and toured around the country by people peddling it to be the real thing, and it actually wasn't. There's Clyde Barrow's membership card in the Metropolitan Recreation Club in Dallas, Texas. Here's something that caught my attention right away. This is the actual Uzi submachine gun used by Al Pacino in the 1983 film Scarface. We also got a few artifacts here as well, right next to the Uzi. A mask card for John Gotti, who died in 2002. Al Capone's Japanese cherry trees. This was, let's see what it says here. In 1939, Al Capone was being treated for syphilis in Baltimore. In gratitude for the care received, he donated 2 Japanese cherry trees to the hospital. While one of the trees still stands, it lost a limb in 2010, which was then used to make these mementos right here. Very interesting. This is the actual revolver used by Sonny, played by James Caan in The Godfather. And here's another pistol from The Godfather used by Luca Brasi, who sleeps with the fishes. There's a brick from the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, which took place in Chicago. That building is no longer standing, but what we do have over here next to the brick is a pocket watch from the Elgin Watch Company. I did a video about that a few months ago, and this one belonged to Fred Burke, lead suspect in the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Here's Mickey Cohen's outfit. He was one of the mob bosses on the West Coast in Los Angeles. And right next to that is a picture of John Gotti, nicknamed the Teflon Don, as well as Carlos Gambino. And I saw Bugsy Siegel down here as well. There's Bugsy Siegel, Las Vegas mobster. There's also a mugshot of Henry Hill, who was made famous because of the 1990 movie Goodfellas, directed by Martin Scorsese. Here's a display about D.B. Cooper, the infamous hijacker who jumped out of a Boeing 707 back in 1971 after demanding ransom and a couple of parachutes. He jumped out of the back of the plane and was never heard from again. Yeah, the D.B. Cooper story has always been a fascinating one to me, just because I love reading about mysteries and just a strong desire to want to see this mystery solved someday. And right over here you can see the money that was found in 1980, but no body of D.B. Cooper. And the way they knew that this was the money from the hijacking is because the serial numbers matched up. Here on display they have a handbag made by Monica Lewinsky. And I always think of that Tom Green special where he made a huge announcement about how Monica Lewinsky makes handbags. Bernard Madoff arrested in 2008 for running a Ponzi scheme. He actually just recently passed away. There's a picture of Madoff with his two sons. There is a statement from Madoff Investments. All turned out to be phony. A few other artifacts here. Toy snake, Louisville Slugger baseball bat, just a couple of the items that the FBI recovered and the U.S. Marshal Service. And several of them were auctioned off. There's a picture of Madoff with his two sons and his wife Ruth. Here's a letter that Mr. Madoff sent to his son Andrew from prison, wishing him a happy birthday. Andrew died of cancer in 2014, having never spoken to his father ever again after Madoff confessed to the Ponzi scheme back in 2008. Inside the serial killer section now, you got a poster about John Wayne Gacy, whose house was actually on the northwest side of Chicago and was torn down once it was discovered that he had hid several bodies inside his crawl space. There's some material of John Wayne Gacy's, his paint set, art supplies, leather jacket, his wallet, a Radio Shack sticker on there, and his typewriter. And here's his Pogo the Clown outfit, a character that he developed and would portray during company picnics. There's more artifacts. There's Jeffrey Dahmer's signature here, as well as the handcuffs that were used to move him. Some baseball signed by Charles Manson, as well as another one of his autographs here. And then this was a Afghan made by Judy Buenano, a woman I had never heard of until now. Apparently she was put to death for the killing of her family in Florida. Here is a typewriter used by Ted Bundy along with his dental cast. Here's Jeffrey Dahmer's glasses. I've covered the Kennedy assassination before on this channel, but they do have a few artifacts here in this museum. There's Jack Ruby killing Lee Harvey Oswald. Right below that is a signed check by Mr. Ruby himself. There's Lee Harvey Oswald's discharge papers out of the military. And Jack Ruby's property receipt. There's a bullet that was shot out of Jack Ruby's gun back in 1993 to commemorate the 30th anniversary of the Lee Harvey Oswald killing. We also have on display Marilyn Monroe's dress. Monroe was known to have been romantically connected to President Kennedy. This is a display of a hut of the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski. I think he just recently passed away too. There's a replica of a bomb that he planted on an American Airlines flight number 444. Here's his Bible and a model scale. Here's a piece of steel from the World Trade Center towers. Collapsed on 9/11 in a terrorist attack. They also have a few 9/11 artifacts here on display. Some pieces from what was known as the pile, which was the pile of rubble that was created when the towers both fell. There's a picture of the American flag draped over the Pentagon, and there's the actual flag itself. Some uniforms of first responders, as well as an air mask and a helmet. There's some photos from that day. Seems like yesterday. Definitely one of those moments where I remember what I was doing when this all went down. And this is an exhibit of items that prisoners took part in behind bars. And this truck right here with the 7 dwarfs on it was painted by John Wayne Gacy. Over there in that corner, the Hollywood Mobsters, that was also a John Wayne Gacy painting, as was that picture of the Baseball Hall of Fame with the Major League Baseball logo on it. This was signed by 46 members of the Hall of Fame after Gacy was done painting it. And one more thing from this exhibit, that owl right there was created out of soap. Here's a replica of Al Capone's prison cell at Eastern State Penitentiary. He was busted for, I think, weapons charges in Philadelphia and served, I think, a little under a year and lived in a much more luxurious accommodations than your average prisoner. Here's a replica of an Alcatraz prison cell with the toilet, bunk bed, and desk. And they've set up a little escape route here if you were so inclined. Alright, let's see if we can crawl through this here. Yeah, that was where I just crawled out of. Here's a lethal injection machine right next to the electric chair. Not to be outdone is this very large gas chamber. Here's an artifact of O.J. Simpson's, his playing helmet from his days with the Buffalo Bills. In the car section now, this is Ted Bundy's 1968 Volkswagen Beetle, right next to the death car that was used in the 1967 film Bonnie and Clyde. This here's John Dillinger's 1933 Essex Terraplane. However, this is what I came here to see. OJ's 1993 Ford Bronco. And the sign says, yes, this is the real Bronco that was being chased by the Los Angeles Police Department on June 17th, 1994. Al Collings, who was driving the vehicle, was also the owner. This was not actually OJ's vehicle, but it was Al Collings. Yes, one of those moments where you remember what you were doing when it was taking place. I remember I was watching the NBA Finals between the Knicks and the Rockets, and the TV broadcast was cut off to switch over to the O.J. Simpson chase. Right here in front of the Bronco, they show the footage of the actual chase here. And one last look at the O.J. Simpson Bronco before heading out here. Here's the pistol used by Kevin Costner in the movie The Untouchables. Costner in that movie played Elliot Ness, although he's more famous now for starring in Yellowstone on the Paramount Plus and Peacock Network. Whitey Bulger of the Boston Crime Syndicate. Here is his shoes that he was wearing when he was finally captured in 2011 after being on the run for several years. Here towards the end of the museum, they have a display about counterfeiting. And here's some counterfeit material video games. Here's the Xbox 360, which I do own. Looks like the real thing. There's a counterfeit Superman Tweety dolls, as well as the Angry Birds, a few other items. They say that if the price is too good to be true, it probably is, and that's how you can stop yourself from buying a counterfeit item and protect yourself, I should say. The golf clubs of O.J. Simpson. A signed picture of Aaron Hernandez, who was convicted of murder and was killed in prison. There's a ticket from the AFC Championship game, of which Aaron Hernandez played his last game. There's a towel that says Michael Vick must go after he was charged with running a dog fighting ring.
Yes.
Baseball card from Chick Gandil, played with the White Sox and was part of the 1919 Black Sox scandal. There's the Theranos Edison machine, which was supposed to test blood using just one droplet. Turned out the whole thing was one big fraud, and the company founder, Elizabeth Holmes, is now serving time in prison for fraud. So that was an awesome museum. I could not believe the amount of artifacts that they had in there. Definitely my favorite piece was that O.J. Simpson Bronco, but I would definitely make a return trip to this museum because I think I didn't see maybe half the things that were in there because it was so busy. However, it was a great time and something that I definitely will make a return trip to someday. One thing I did notice here as I'm filming my outro is this clock up at the top here, kind of reminiscent of the Back to the Future clock tower there. I'm sure that's not what the purpose of it is. It says 11:55 on there. It doesn't say 10:04, but just thought I'd point that out just for the hell of it. Anyways, if you wouldn't mind hitting that like and subscribe button, I would greatly appreciate it. There's other ways you could help me out in growing the channel. I'll put links down in the description below. That includes the Mike Allen from Chicagoland Facebook page, as well as my Patreon account. You're welcome to submit a donation if you'd like. You don't have to, but any amount would be very much appreciated. Anyways, this is Mike Allen from Chicagoland signing off from Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. I'm hoping to do maybe another video or two from this area before heading home. I'll be back next week with another video, but until then, don't you go changing.